everyone, and welcome to another Scots Whay Hae podcast. And today I'm joined by the founding artistic director of Cryptic, Cathie to hear all about this year's Sonica Festival, which runs at 16 venues across Glasgow between the 19th and 29th of September. Hello, Cathie.
Hello, Alistair. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And there's a significant amount to talk to you about. So before we dig into the details, can you tell us a bit about Cryptic and the Sonica Festival more generally?
Yeah, of course. So Cryptic's a Glasgow producing art house. I started 30 years ago. It was initially for me as a director and actually came out of Capital of Culture. I was so inspired by all the international work I saw. I decided to set up a company to enable me to work internationally. And after 20 years of directing productions, I basically wanted to give the next generation opportunity. So now we have lots of different programs. We've got Cryptic Nights, which runs all year at CCA. We have Cryptic artists who are artists, mostly from Scotland. We promote and tour globally. And then we run residency programs, and then Sonica Glasgow, which is our main flagship.
If people want to know, because I think there'll be plenty of people listening who want to know more about Cryptic, what's the best way of doing that?
Well, that would be to go to cryptic.org.uk. And the one thing I'd say about Cryptic, stay curious, because anything that's too obvious we'll never do. And at the heart of everything we do is music. So it's about how music is presented visually. And that could be on stage with lighting, projection, or it could be outside with sculptures, or it could be film, or it could be people working with new media. But at the core of everything, it's music and then something else with it. So we never present a straight gig.
Yeah, and we can see that certainly in the programme of this year's Sonica Festival. And before we go into the programme itself, what's the history of Sonica? When did that begin?
So Sonica, we started in 2012. And we started annual, and then we decided, whoa, hang on, this is a lot of work. So it's biannual, and I like that because it gives a chance to not basically feel you're churning it out every year. It really gives you time to travel, and also we have a lot of money to raise. All these international artists coming in is all international funding. There's no Creative Scotland funding for that. So basically, that takes time to build up those relationships with all those embassies and international funds. So, yeah.
So I think you probably need to take a deep breath for the next one. But what have we got to look forward to this year?
Too much.
Because I should say to listeners, I get a press release to look through, and wow, there's a lot to go. But and it's all, as you say, it's all interesting. It's absolutely fascinating stuff.
Well, with everything from celebrating Craig Armstrong at Sydney Masters at GFT all through September, amazing composer who I feel very lucky as a director. I've worked with him twice, and we're doing a Q&A with him around The Great Gatsby on the 25th of September. So the other extreme of Sonica is a one-on-one experience where we have taken over the Market and the Clock Tower for the first time. Thank you, Glasgow City Council. And that's very exciting. That's a work called, and I've got to tell you the title. Now this one you're going to expect me to know everything off by heart. And really, I cannot do that with 100 events, I'm afraid. It's melting through the scatters of time. Beautiful title by a Scottish-based Russian artist called Andrei Chukhanov. So that's exciting that we're at the Market at the Clock Tower. Then we also have Alex Smoke at Govan Hill Baths doing a performance, and that will be beautiful. Alex Way, mesmeric and very calming. We've lots of performances at Tramway. We're at the Glad Cafe. We're at the IMAX. And you asked me to focus on one thing, and I'm going to start going through everything. And of course, we're at CCA because that's where Cryptic is based. So, and every space in CCA, we're transforming it in a different way. So in the cinema, we take out the seats, and we put an installation in the cinema. So, and in the theatre, we put an installation, not a performance. So yeah, it's nice to play with the spaces.
So how do you even begin to comprehend a festival of this size? I mean, I know you've done it before, so part of it will be we know what works where. But I guess every time they'll throw up something new for you.
It's always new challenges. Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I'm I'm very, very keen on supporting artists from lesser known regions in the world. That's my big passion. You know, Cryptic's worked in 32 countries, and I'm very, very lucky to, you know, have worked in Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Vietnam, and then Europe. And it's looking at, every year I look at countries and think, okay, who are the exciting young artists coming out of there that people don't know but should know, let's say in Europe. So we're presenting artists from, we have a beautiful project, A Field of Heritage, coming from Hanoi, which we previously showed at Monsoon Music Festival. It was a collaboration between a Scottish artist and a Vietnamese musician. And then it's also, I travel a lot to see work, and I also want to travel to the lesser known festivals, because otherwise if all the programmers are all going to the same festivals, then other audiovisual festivals like Sonica, we all start to look too alike. But one thing this year, which is quite interesting, is we've commissioned a lot of work, probably more than usual. So we've commissioned 2 works for the City Chambers, because it's 100 years of the cenotaph regarding the Lamp of Remembrance. And Amble Scouse has done incredible research with nurses who've served in wars, from people who served in the Second World War to people who've served in Afghanistan, wars in Egypt. Extraordinary archive footage, as well as interviewing people. So that's a sonic work in the entrance of the city halls. And then we've also commissioned a VR work where you can explore the city halls, and that's with an Egyptian artist. We're commissioning Zonia Kilman and Laura Manelli to make a sonic installation, Votren, in CCA. And that's a work which is lots of robots and moving sculptures, and it's and that's a work that you want to sort of stay and watch and see what happens next. And Zonia Kilman's a fantastic musician, so she's also giving 20-minute free performances at the weekends as well. I'm going into the program again, and you're asking me how do I approach it. See how I do that?
That's all right. That's okay.
Anyway, so I guess what I would say is each year has a country focus. So last Sonica in 22, it was France, and this year it's Egypt. And that's because last year we had a big collaboration with Bazaria for Arts in Alexandria, and we sent several artists and residents to Alexandria, and there was a work made again between a British artist and an Egyptian artist, which we'll show at the Lighthouse in Glasgow. So that's also important to look at, okay, what country do we want to highlight?
And so you are kind of actively going to festivals around the world and seeking out something new rather than them coming to you. That's the kind of direction of it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we get a lot of emails and people saying, you know, here's my work. And I think the most important thing for me as a curator is I want to see the works live. And also, where possible, I want to meet the artist. You know, Glasgow is a great city, and Glaswegians and the Celts, we're all very hospitable. We like people to have a good time. So within Sonica, we invite people to come to the city for a minimum of 3 days. Some people ask to stay for the full 10, which is amazing, and we, you know, arrange for them to be in a flat. But what's really important for me is actually them coming to Glasgow and enjoying it, and actually getting a sense of Scotland here, and having time to go to the necropolis if they want to go to Loch Lomond, just to see things outside the city as well. Yeah, because, you know, I know it's like going to these festivals. I never get a chance to see the city unless I stay on, you know, and that's a shame. As a touring artist, I remember coming out of Mexico, go straight into Bogota, and I was thinking, I never got to see that city. That was horrendous. I spent my whole time inside in the theatre teching, and then the show's on, and then you're off again. And I guess that's a kind of course, it costs more. It's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to me, really, what I experienced. But it's also better for the environment that people are staying longer in places and not just jetting off all the time.
Well, that's a really interesting aspect of it. So it's an encouraging people not just to come, but come and stay as well.
Yeah.
And it strikes me, looking through the program again, a lot of it is conceptual in terms of it's not just someone rocking up with a guitar and playing. You know, there's a lot to go on. You mentioned Amble-Scous's piece, and I'm very interested in that and to hear more about it. That was one of my highlighted things that I put a pen through to. Must learn more. But I mean, that's a huge amount of work that's gone into that.
Oh, massive. I mean, you know, I selected Amble for that, particularly because of her brilliant approach to composition. She is a composer who, I mean, she's a brilliant musician, but she's a composer who loves to research, and she also loves to use the human voice. And what she's actually doing with the work is she's taking an hour of interviews, and she's made an hour's work, but actually then she's making that generative. So she's feeding that into computer, and that will come out, and it'll never be the same each day. So yeah, I think she's done a fantastic job.
And before we go any further, we should let people know where they can find the whole program so they can peruse it at their leisure.
So it's online, obviously, and that's Sonica, so sonic-a.co.uk. But also we have lots of programs which are being distributed around the city. So you have to look out for one of these, and they're all over the place. Yeah, or listen. And this design is by the wonderful Jam Hot. Thank you, Jam Hot. You're brilliant. So we have those across all our venues in Glasgow. And I'm also thrilled because Sonica's during the Doors Open Day, the first weekend.
Yeah.
You know, the Lighthouse for me is a fantastic building in Glasgow, and it's a shame it's not open all the time. So I really hope that a lot of people come to see it, because personally, I'm terribly excited to be able to take over the Lighthouse. I've got so many ideas.
It's a great space, actually, and you've made me realise that I haven't been there for quite a while, but some of the places Govanhill Baths being another fantastic example, that people who live in this area, I'm in the south side myself of Glasgow, but will know about it, but other people may not.
No, I mean, Govanhill Baths is, you know, just off Victoria Road, and obviously they're still developing the baths, and some of the works are very advanced. But we are actually going to be doing the performance with Alex Smoke in the Steamy.
Right.
And what's lovely is he's actually going to have, I'm not going to give too much away, but he's going to have a live instrument in the actual pool, and we're going to hear it from the other pool in the Steamy. I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah. And well, I mean, how much collaboration goes into putting the festival on? And, you know, what kind of size of team are you dealing with?
So my team would kill me. We're a really small team. So Cryptic core staff is 6.
Right.
But for the festival, I couldn't actually. There's probably about 12 of us who are working on the festival. You know, we have a great copywriter who we, you know, send everything to. We have, you know, PR team. We've got a technical team. So we are a small team, and I have to say I am hugely grateful to my team for all their energy and hard work, and also for putting up with me, because I'm very demanding. I want everything yesterday and don't understand why it's not done. So just be glad you're not working with me, Alistair. So but yeah, and it's good fun. The whole point of Cryptic's work hard, play hard. Like, we giggle a lot and talk, but it's still, you know, my big line is ATD, always attention to detail. That's the whole, you know, it has to be quality on and off the stage. That used to be one of our things. So yeah. And
I mean, is that one of the reasons you went by annually? Just that there was just so much going into the festival each year. It was almost like you were never away from it.
I actually don't like the whole thing of, oh, one's finished, we've got to start the next. I don't think that's healthy. And we'd experienced that with Cryptic Nights. Initially, when we launched Cryptic Nights at CCN 2009, that was a monthly event. And I eventually put the brakes on that and said, this is ridiculous. We're not doing, you know, 11 of these. I think the only one we didn't do was Christmas or something. I said, no, we're not doing 11. We're going to do less, 7, and do it better and leave some gaps. And I have to say, I enjoy the biannual because it does give time for planning and building relations. And also, I love putting artists together, you know, putting Sonia Kilman and Lara Manelli from Luxembourg together. They're complete chalk and cheese, and that's why it works. But, you know, I had met Laura and seen her work in various cities around the world. And, you know, Sonia Kilman's one of our Cryptic artists. So, yeah, I enjoyed, you know, the matching. You do hope it works.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that you were kind of putting people together, because a lot of the pieces mentioned, a lot of the performances are collaborative. There's more than one artist involved. And is
Yeah,
that
I mean,
often you do that? You kind of find
well, I mean, the work from Vietnam, I brought the visual artist Verona Pachukov to Hanoi to work with Kwok Chung. So not all of them, not at all. I can't take credit for that. You know, lots of artists like Ben Chapman has chosen his cellist Pete Harvey for that. You know, and I love the fact that we have live music with the electronic. The last thing I want people to think is Sonica is just an electronic festival. The fact we have the RSNO, and you know, it's an accessible, relaxed environment. We take out all the seats in tramway. We just keep the balcony upstairs, and that means that people can sit or they can lie and listen to the John Luther Adams Become Ocean, and it's glorious. It's 41 minutes, and it is like waves coming over you. It's stunning. There was an interview yesterday in the Scotsman, and yeah, I was thrilled that he was so excited about it having its Scottish premiere, because it hasn't been, you know, played here before. But we've also got, for the first time, we're working with the Burrell. Yeah. And I adore the Burrell. And I just think it's, you know, it is such a fantastic flagship for Glasgow, what that collection that we've been given by him. And the fact that it won Museum of the Year, and the shop is fantastic. I'm also keen for all the international visitors to go to the Burrell thing. You have to go and see it. So we have the Scottish Ensemble. Yeah. And the idea with that is that they're actually going to play and move around the museum and lead you around, which I adore. And that's a pay what you can. And then we also have Harry Gorski Brown beforehand on pipes, fiddle, and vocals singing. So yeah, I'm really excited about the Burrell, and the Scottish Ensemble are such a fantastic string ensemble, and I love the repertoire that Jane Atkins chosen. It's Ravel, Shostakovich, Donald Grant, Nina Simone. It's glorious. Yeah. Yeah, that was another one I had down as a kind of it sounds amazing. Good choice. I'm so glad that you explained it. I mean, it's called Echoes of the Burrell, and now that you've talked about how that will unfold, you absolutely get that title as well. Yeah. In fact, now I've learnt from the past not to maybe ask someone their favourites coming up. I think you've mentioned quite a few already, but if it's okay with you, I'll give you some of the ones that I'm particularly looking forward to. Yes, I'd like to hear. Comment on them, because Ella Orleans, right at the beginning, La Nuit d'Or, or however you may say it, my French is terrible, but just have Ella Orleans back in the city as well. I'm a big fan of their music, and yeah, so how did that come about? So Ella Orleans is one of our Cryptic artists, and I adore Ella, and I love the fact that classically trained, you know, conservatoire, and you really hear that. I mean, that's interesting. You really hear when artists, musicians have been at conservatoire and trained, and those who have learnt it themselves. And she has actually spent a year in residence at the Cité International in Paris. Mm. Thus her being inspired to make a work about 1960s French songs. So I'm thrilled she's coming back, and I'm thrilled she's opening Sonica. You know, she's on the first night with Ahmed Saleh. Yeah, Ella's brilliant, and she's so, you know, she's an amazing performer. So I'm very excited about that work. So that's a work Cryptic's actually commissioned. Yeah. Another one, and another artist who I long admired the work is She, and it's the Moving Tides. Yeah. So Sue is very, very, I would say she's an environmentalist musician. I mean, that's her real focus now in the environment, and, you know, how are we addressing this? And the Moving Tides, again, she was in residence in Alexandria last year. And did a lot of recordings there, and very much focused on the sea, obviously, with the title Moving Tide speaks for itself. But what I love about this piece is she's actually built her own synthesizer. Right. Which is just glorious. And she's singing, you know, she's got a fabulous voice. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that. And it's a quad performance. And she's in a double bill with Knick Knack, which is great. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to that double bill.
Yeah, if people aren't aware of She's music, some of her latest music you can find online at the moment, streaming. It's fantastic. We've mentioned the Scottish Ensemble in the Borough, and that just sounds unmissable, frankly. Someone I would like to bring up, because we've had them on the podcast previously, is Sanjeev Man and Superman on the Beat, who's going to be at the Glad Cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, Sanjeev does incredible work.
He's amazing. He's so, I mean, the great thing about Angie, he's so clever. I mean, when you listen to his lyrics, they're just so smart. And also I'm very excited because he's collaborating with the visual artists on the visuals for that. But he's brilliant. So I'm really looking forward to him being, I think he's our final performance at Glad Cafe. He is. Yeah. We've got 3 performances at Glad Cafe. But yeah, I'm delighted that he's part of that and also part of the Pro program. So we run a Sonica Pro where we invite, God, I think we've got 80 delegates coming in over the entire festival. So these are, I think we've got people coming from 17 countries to see some Scottish talent. So that's really important, and they better bloody book their Scottish artists.
So that's people like yourself coming from other festivals to see what's happening.
Yeah. So, just in case people think that I go flying around the world and it's costing Cryptic a lot of money, a lot of the time I'm invited to festivals and they pay for me to go. So that's very important to stress it. It's not public money. But yeah, I'm thrilled. We have artists, programmers coming in from Colombia, Senegal, Rwanda, Australia, Vietnam, Turkey, and then lots in Europe. Yeah. Canada, and nobody from Iceland. Don't know if any of the Nordics. The Nordics are a wee bit. I need to focus on the Nordics a bit. But yeah, so that's exciting. So they get to see the work, and many of them haven't been at Sonica before, so I'm excited that they're coming.
Oh, that's fantastic. Someone else you mentioned, Sue, building a synthesizer. Someone else I can imagine doing something like that is Loman Campbell.
Of course.
Machine.
Beautiful. I mean, this machine, you have to go and play with it. The beauty with Lomond, I mean, we had found in the very first edition of Sonica, and I was always obsessed with Cyberphone. Do you remember Cyberphone that they had in Edinburgh that was in the Museum of Scotland?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that piece. Now that's a piece I would like to have in Sonica, bringing it back. But I think if the museum's put it in storage, I was told it was too hard to get to. It's like, really? Anyway, obviously Lomond was part of Find, but known as Ziggy, I think, in those days.
That's right.
But the beauty of, I mean, Lomond's an amazing musician. If you look at one of his albums like Lost Loops, you can hear him playing the piano, and he did those great 360 videos during lockdown. And you look at his studio and you're so jealous because he's got so many toys to play with. But the beautiful thing about Unsung is actually it's a gorgeous piece of design. It's absolutely stunning, and that's what's beautiful about what he does. It's so, some artists like the messy look, so I adore the fact he's clean, and it's just such an incredible design. And as you turn the dials, then it will play back to you. And he's going to give performances of that as well through Sonica. I'm wanting to do impromptu ones at Tramway, so I'm excited about that.
I've stood in an audience and watched Lomond on stage playing with valves and been absolutely blown away by it. There's not many people, who can hold your attention by doing things like that. It's something else.
Totally. And we're also getting him we're getting him to play at Rum Shack one night late as well. Oh yeah. If Roman's coming down, I'm making sure we're getting
Quite right as well. And you mentioned at the beginning Craig Armstrong, and this is, of course, a big name coming along. Why you've worked with Craig yourself? You said that was one of the reasons.
Yeah, but also, Alistair, for me, Craig is a brilliant composer, and many Glaswegians or many Scots or even Brits, let's say, don't realise he grew up in East End of Glasgow, and we should be celebrating him. And I wanted Craig to play at Sonica, but sadly the artist he wanted to collaborate with wasn't available, so we put it on hold for another year, another time. So but you know, of course we should be celebrating him. You know, his music is amazing. So yeah, you hear the strings and you just know that's Craig. Yeah.
I mean, most people, if they do know him, will know him. They might not even realise it by his soundtrack work on some huge films you're talking about, that, you know, showing the Great Gatsby and of course Romeo and Juliet and things like that.
Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge as well. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But his albums, The Space Between and the ones,
Amazing.
two of my favourite albums of all time. They're just incredible.
Well, when we did Sound to Sea for the Commonwealth Games on the Clyde, I had a track from The Space Between Us in the show, because it was actually for our James Bond moment. We had a live rescue that the Royal Navy was involved with, but it was just, those are brilliant albums. The Space Between Us, yeah. People should go and buy those now. Actually, good music doesn't date. You know, we're still listening to Bach, we're still listening to Debussy, so we'll still be listening to Craig Armstrong and those albums in years to come as well, for sure.
Oh, absolutely right. I wanted to ask you about arts funding, and because at a time when arts funding is in the news and facing drastic cuts, just how important is it to festivals such as Sonica?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I mean, what's happened is, it's actually terrifying, Alistair, because that fund was the only fund that any independent artist could apply to. And that being closed down, what hope? I mean, I think, what hope do artists have? And, you know, people were contacting me saying, but they funded every single project of mine. What am I going to do? How am I going to make work? You know, hearing Shona Robertson this morning on the Today programme on Radio 4, you know, there's not a good time ahead. It's very, very worrying. And of course, when you look at education and health, I am one of those people who will say those always have to come first before art. I know previous Edinburgh Festival directors have said, what are you talking about, art? You know, and of course art is important, but we enhance people's lives. It's not surgery. And yeah, I'm very worried what's going to happen in the coming, let's say, years. But I hope, and I think this has also been a very, very difficult decision for Creative Scotland. There's no point kicking them. They're looking at what the Scottish Government is saying to them and very nervous about the future. But I am sure this is an incredibly difficult decision for them. And no doubt they will plan something to come in its place in due course. You know, yeah.
Well, I think people, they maybe don't realise that, as you say, it's individual artists and it's across the board. You know, this isn't going to just music or every art form completely. That people, I mean, I think about the amount of, you know, poetry collections or albums or things which have supported by Creative Scotland on the back, and to take that away is just terrible.
No, it's very, very worrying. And, you know, and so many of the Scottish artists in Sonica have work because it was funded a year or 2 years ago by that open fund. So, yeah.
Well, in fact, Sonica is going to be a great example of what can be achieved with the funding still in place. I think.
No, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, we should celebrate that. And yeah, it's very good evidence for that. Completely. Yeah.
Now, is there anything about this year's festivals that we haven't mentioned that you would really like to?
I'm excited to have not Conks on Pax and Riccardo Giovanetti at the IMAX, because when you're thinking about audiovisual work, these are two artists who have, I love it because I've purposely put them in a double bill because their visuals are so different, but absolutely extraordinary. And to think of those works on those huge screen and with amazing sound and big sub in there, I think that will be really spectacular. I mean, that's the last Saturday. We're doing that on, I think, Saturday the 28th at 3 o'clock. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And funnily enough, Cryptic opened the IMAX when it first opened in 2000. So I know the building quite well. I used to do building openings. So yeah, so I'm really pleased we're going into the IMAX. Yeah, it's exciting.
It's actually a great, something you mentioned earlier on, a kind of great way to see the city, isn't it? Because these are some of the most iconic, whether it's at the Birkett, at the Glasgow Cross, or whether the IMAX, or other places, Govan Hill. These are really iconic spaces and places, and really historical spaces as well.
Yeah, that's, I mean, you know, our essential key partners, of course, are Tramway and CCA. And, you know, and we have worked with them for a very, very long time. You know, and Cryptic began at Tramway. But one of the things with Sonica is to celebrate those historic buildings that we never get to see, and to put music or sound in it for 10, 11 days. And that's really, really important. You know, there are amazing old buildings in Glasgow, you know, and I go into space and think, wow, in here would be amazing. So that's an important part for Sonica, to celebrate those historic buildings, definitely.
If people had never been in the city halls, for instance, the Amble Skews, what an experience to go in and see it.
Completely. And you know, I often send, you know, there's a free tour twice a day in the city chambers. So I'm telling everyone, get in there and look at that. There's more marble in there than in the Vatican. So, I mean, Ahmed El Shir's work, The Narrative, that's interesting because it's actually inspired by Glasgow's crest. So the bell that never rang, the bird that never flew, the fish that never swam. And yeah, I think that would be actually quite a beautiful work. He's an extraordinary artist, represented at the Venice Biennale, the Dubai Biennale, all over the world, Shanghai Biennale. And he's actually an Egyptian artist based in Dundee at the moment. So I'm delighted that we have an opportunity to show a new work of his.
And it's such a great idea to have this utterly international festival, which has the city of Glasgow at its heart, kind of running right through it, and hosting it in such a kind of wide and varied way. Cathie, thank you so much for telling us all about it. You've really inspired me. Not just, I mean, I was when I saw the program, but now even more so. So thank you so much for talking to me about Sonica.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the program. Thank you very much.
And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. You thought it was all over, but just as we finished recording, Cathie remembered there was something she really did want to point up. So over to you.
Irish moment by me, you mean, forgetting this. So the opening performance is the amazing Alexander Cottini from Nine Inch Nails. And he's performing live with Marco Cesari. And that's at Tramway on the 19th. Don't miss it.
How did you get the man from Nine Inch Nails involved? That's fantastic.
I actually saw the show at Mutek last year. And yeah, I loved it because the visuals are all being created live with minerals. And it's actually a really slow, quite intense work that builds. Yeah, Alessandro's amazing. So
that sounds, I think you've definitely put some ticket sales on for that one. So, thanks
it's
again.
Selling fast. It's selling.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.